hypertext, right? The fact that you could click on an entity in the system and select, to either interact with it in some way, or also, save it. So I'm not against graphical systems. In fact, I was originally thinking of doing a top-down Zelda-style thing. I even have the assets for it. But I just think this is the lowest, quickest barrier to entry.
What are you trying to get?
Insight from chat for the user, okay, would be take a Mastodon server, okay, except exactly as it is right now, except when you are connecting to a person or a group chat, only on that one Mastodon server, then in addition to being able to send these text strings, I can send something that's a little more complex, which is one of my SID objects, which is a text description of an object. And when that happens, it gets if they have rights to it, gets manifested on that Mastodon server, and you can basically send it commands to do things. And it has a very simple scripting language, and anybody who's on that Mastodon server can do things, and it outputs to the strings to
That's a valid direction to it, and we talked about doing that in the social community group and stuff like that. So I mean that's a totally valid direction. Right, but so I want to respond again to the Minecraft thing. So one of the things about the Minecraft example is that both this and the Minecraft example have a similar property in that they don't look aesthetically amazing, right? Now there was a project that around the same time as Second Life, what's the name of Ellen Kay was working on that was in small talk. Croquet. And it was a distributed online 3D environment where people could send messages and they could do all this kind of shit in 3D. And it worked. And they had like 3 rooms for it, right? Like there was like, the problem is that there were not much content made for it because the barrier to entry on creating content is really high. We could do something like this in a Minecraft Minetest environment, but I don't think it's the same kind of social networking type environment that like MUDs are very much so like social networking.
That's because they're not social networking right now because they exist as single servers that you deploy and you run your friends with. But if you federated a bunch of Minecraft servers, I could go as a kid and jump.
If you want to build this thing out of Minecraft type environment, I say +1, go for it. I just think that it's if I was to imagine myself building it, it would be a lot more work than I can imagine myself doing within the resources I have. Whereas this research,
so like with Castle Merak, which 20 years later I still have lots of people playing, you can attach images to any document. The rule though is there are no representational things in the game. So what that means is I can look at paintings, I can look at sculptures, I can look at other things, but I can't actually look at the real thing. But any user can basically add right now it's just a URL that describes, that is the representation of content. So imagine, to Mastodon, how often have you, done an emote thing that basically says, passes man to a beer. Right. Okay. So now we basically create a little beer bot object. And when you talk to the beer bot, it basically does some kind of visual thing where, something really simple, 2 images at any grade rather than a complex 3D thing.
Chris, I don't think, so you said you've done all 4 of those. So you've coded a secure browser in the way that you want it to be secure?
No, so I haven't coded the browser thing. I haven't done. I've done the chat. So I've done the chat system, right? And I built a browser.
Well, I'm saying just go build it. And when I thought through that, I'm thinking, well, to get it to the point where the browser is secure in the way you need, I think is the biggest gap.
So
I mean, you can start with Chromium. And
no. I'm not talking about starting with Chromium. I'm talking about starting with links.
Well, okay.
I'm talking about a much dumber browser, right? It's not great looking, not like amazing. Starting with Chromium has a ton of assumptions built in about the page being able to control the content that makes it have that layer of insecurity. So I think starting with a secure, very vanilla, very boring 1990s browser experience, which is not great enough to use for your daily usage, is maybe an easier thing than trying to whittle away and add security to browsers as they exist now.
I would talk to Mark Miller. I think he would have a short list of things you could cut out of Chromium. Your analysis may still be right, but he's chewed on that problem,
A
right?
short list.
Yeah, Markham always talks about don't try to add security, remove insecurity instead.
Right, and Chromium's easy to use. I've used it in products,
Sure.
and so getting into that and using the principle of via negativa, taking away the stuff that screws it up.
I'd be fine with that type of direction. It's just, again, it's one of the things that I have a
Sure.
personal conception of what I could do as a bias in this talk also.
So as a non-game player, I want to come back to the motivation behind this, which was to somehow provide useful functionality because behind the pet names are hidden. It's something that I control that nobody else can hijack. Right? That sometimes happens in games. It lets me easily produce sock puppets, which I can do today, but I have to go create a new email address. And so it allows me to present the same identity across systems without even those that have different naming schemes. Right? So I can have the same did that will show up in systems that I couldn't use the same name because they don't allow it, or somebody's already got the name I'm using this other. So those are the, to me, would be the incentives for people to do this, even though it's initially a little more primitive than some of the other games that are
So, I mean, my sort of parallel to that is you just told us there's how many people using Mastodon?
There's over 1 million registered users.
Okay, so given the normal thing where 5% or 90% of the traffic, that means there's how many really truly active users that are using it?
So it's probably about 200,000.
Okay, so you have 200,000 people that are using a text interface to basically send text to other people. Being able to refer to a bot and being able to secure a bot that can respond to things, can do the stuff that Bannon does with his IRC bot, that I can basically use on submit to other systems. Say, hey, I've got this great bot that's going to basically serve as a brewmaster or as a secretary or as a whatever for that system. You've got instantly 200,000 active users that would love to be able to program little bots to do things for them, and you just do it as make little secure bots that are bug-like bots in a way, because it's just like the pets in my game or whatever.
This is something that people ask for a lot on Mastodon, by the way. Everybody's like, "Whoa, wouldn't it be cool if we had a Mastodon RPG?" Right? So, you've got the right audience for it. But
Anyway, that's my point though. If you want to get people moving into this new world, your idea of doing it via games is great. Your idea that has to be hidden from the user is absolutely spot on. And so the question is, how do we encourage people to come in? And that, as you said, provide functionality that they can't get otherwise that they really want. And I'm saying, what is that functionality?
I love this talk. The what I'm taking away from it is what I've watched my kid do on Minecraft, which is, okay, he's able to create that world really easily and show his friends and have that interactivity. So I don't know whether he can create bots yet or not, but he can create graphics and things that he can show. And then the other part is sharing that. So he can share that whole world. He can spin up another server, and those are great.
So this is something we didn't talk about sufficiently here, which is how many mods allowed their players to program the world while they're in it. Lambda is a good example. I could probably log into it right now and show you, but I'm not going to bother. It's still running. It's been running since 1989. And what's really interesting about it is that this online world, their user manual to walk around the game is called the database user manual. And I think that's interesting because Lambda also was sold as conference software and other virtual reality software because it turns out walking around the world, picking up objects and manipulating them and adding code to the world that runs is how you interact with the database. You playing the game is interacting with the database. And I think that that's an interesting point that is kind of cool about these areas.
What I like though from taking this to the next generation, the fatal flaw of these games was lack of consent. So you have this whole challenge of I could emote that he touches my tush, even though he never actually did. Nobody can ever know that it was me who basically sent that command. So this is my consent. So you can modernize consent and basically now actually allow those types of things. And kids love being able to craft words, and you can talk to school, to write, whatever, but you actually let them craft these kinds of descriptions and respond to things and address the consent rule.
Right. So in this example, I encourage everybody to read it. It's called An Evening at Shea Scoot. And what's cool about it is, this is using Christopher Allen's game, is that you've got things where, like, you say, this character says kiss Miss Borgia on the cheek, and she has the capacity to consent to it within a time period, and she accepts it, right? But there's another person who doesn't. Actually, yeah, it's further down. Eventually one of the other characters is like, oh, I'm going to give you a kiss on the cheek, and she doesn't do it, and like her character automatically, by default, just kind of scuttles away from him a little bit, like politely, like distances herself. But one of the characters decides, oh, you know what? I'm in an ongoing relationship with this person. I want to always accept these types of interactions, and then so she marks it. And so until she changes that status, that person can always say, I give you a hug, and like the other character hugs back, right? And that's an interesting property about building consent into our online systems. And one of the other things that you and I have talked about is that in a certain sense, capabilities are consent, right? Capabilities are a consent-based programming system. You hand off this ability to do things. Now maybe it gets spookier with delegation, but in general, capabilities are a sort of consent. Yeah.
And in all this, if you just go to GitHub, Skodos, maybe it's Skodos Tech. It's Skodos Tech.
That maybe?
Yeah,
There we go.
Skodos. I put a whole bunch of docs in there of how we did everything, how consent works. If you go in there, there's Skodos at the top, and in docs, you will see the story builder, and then you'll see consent system. Maybe it's proximity.
Right.
I mean, it's literally all of the technical details of how we plan and design every little bit of how proximity works in our thing. Proximity is all about, getting close enough to something where you can basically are allowed to interact with it or hear that, it's doing something. And it was kind of designed, it isn't OCAP behind it. It was designed with those kinds of ideas in mind. I'm not saying using this code, you can learn stuff in the docs.
Any other thoughts? Are we good and closed up? Is everybody's
Start coding.
start coding? The main challenge is finding the time, but I
encourage you to, since you're already mucking around with Mastodon, what is the absolute minimum demonstration of some type of being able to talk or receive an object?
Yeah, and spatial truth. Like one of my frustrations with Palace, remember the Palace back in the day? When I was friends with some of those guys, and they just wouldn't listen to some of the needs for persistence and for moving objects from one place to another place. And so, they weren't getting the atomic things needed to actually build robust virtual spaces, even though they were one of the hottest 2D virtual spaces of the era. So, you could build up atomically on top of Mastodon some of this.
although the mud system that I built was not atomic. That's one of the things that I need to get right about it. Right, you left the room, and like there was a brief window where the room hadn't been updated as you ended up doing
And
stuff like that.
there are proofs old enough to be in books that is an unavoidable problem on a TCP like that.
Also, we had a totally persistent rule, meaning you create something in there, it lives. You're in the game and you go put your hat in the tree. Well, the tree, you put it there 20 years ago, it's still there today.
Right.
So So there are some interesting consequences of a truly persistent world that are troubling.
My favorite. Nope, that's the wrong color. That one's to a roguelike. Bondola. So one of my favorite things at Connect. Oh no, wait, I'd have to show my password, so I'm just going to do at Connect. At Connect. How do I do this without joining in? Connect.
It's a really good password. It's too complex for us to memorize.
Well, so I do have, it comes out of my password manager, but I'm still paranoid enough that even for the Londamu, I don't like pasting my passwords around, right? But what's kind of cool is that, you know, you can walk around this world. I guess it would be too boring to watch me walk around it. Look, I'm in a room. Oh yeah. Yeah, whatever. But there's one of my favorite things is that, like, I was walking around the world, and there was a train set that was moving around, and I was like, oh, what happens if I enter the train set? And my character, like, shrunk down, got onto the train, which started moving from place to place, and I got out. I walked over to this nightclub in this part of town, like a shady part of town. I walked in there, and, you know, they've got a DJ and stuff like that. I go into the bathroom, and they've got graffiti on the wall, and I start reading the graffiti and stuff that people wrote in the 1990s. The graffiti's still there, right? You know, and you know, that kind of experience, you know.
Just like a scene book.
Yeah.
So you also just hit on something else. Did you just say it's boring walking around?
No, it's not boring. I
But
just
you
thought
did
that
say
people
that,
would.
right?
Well, I said I
It's
thought.
too boring for us to watch it.
Yeah, I thought
okay,
that
got it.
watching somebody else play in mud is probably boring. It's fun for me, but I don't know that it would be fun for others. Right?
Well, so another piece of feedback, my recommendation to do it is make a real game, not just to play the sandbox.
right.
Right.
Londamu
So that was
is
one of
too
my problems with
sandbox-like.
Land, but it's too sandboxy. Whereas you drop into a classic LP mud, right? You're in a Dungeons and Dragons style. There are gaming, there are levels, there are things to kill, things to do.
Right.
And eventually you could start manipulating the world and earn the right to be a wizard and do whatever. But, you know, first experience it was gamified, and I would recommend that you gamify it immediately.
Yeah, and Londamu is not like that. You can act like it's just a hodgepodge of whatever people thought was fun to add.
On the other hand, you can program right away, which
Right.
has its own allure.
Yeah, you find the bar. It's one of those things where it's a social environment where you have to talk to somebody to find it out. There's a barkeeper, the bartender. If you ask for the red rubber ball, he'll give you a red rubber ball that you push into your forehead, and so you can view the source code of everything and start programming. You know, and like that's the kind of cool stuff that, you know. The moment that I found out, somebody was like, "Let's walk to the bar." You know, it immediately bonded me to that person, right? So. Anyway, I hope people had fun.
Still thinking about how to relate it to IIW capabilities as opposed to other.
Well, so that we talked about capabilities coming out of these systems, and you said earlier the only sane way that you'd be able to manage the permissions to such a system is to use capabilities, right? And it would have to be actor model style capabilities, right? Like if you did anything else, it would be a fucking nightmare.
So in '96, when I was designing an open system for 1 million machines, which sounded like a big number then, it wasn't anymore. I said all I knew were ACLs. And after 1 hour of coding, I said, this isn't going to work. And I actually reinvented capabilities and the actor model. So I never heard of either one of these.
Hello, Mr. Actor Model. Nice to see you.
So I have an understanding of